Hello everyone, Scott Stengel here with my pal Nate Moore,
Hey guys.
Melco Applications. Today we're going to talk to you about the alphabet editor in DesignShop. This is a Pro Plus only feature. However, even if you don't have Pro Plus, it's really good to understand how alphabets work, where the spacing is, how all that functions, and it'll make you a better user of DesignShop. Okay, so what do we use the alphabet editor for? We use it to modify existing alphabets if there is an A that always closes up, or a W that's too thin compared to the rest of the letters. You can use it to modify the existing alphabets, although I'll talk about that in a minute. It will get overwritten when you install new software, so we want to change the name. And we also use it to create new alphabets from scratch. This is how Nate and I create all the alphabets with the stars that you see in DesignShop, all the recent stuff that we've done. So I've been doing alphabets, believe it or not. I was thinking back, 1987 I started. So we're talking Melco DOS EDS2 and 5 1/4 inch floppy disks were just brand new on the market. So
I'm pretty sure I was reading Trumpet of the Swan by E.B. White in school.
Yeah. Melco actually did, since I worked here, I worked with the engineers, they sort of, I had some special privileges or something because I was testing, and I would give them feedback and all that stuff. So yeah, the alphabets have changed drastically over the years. We have done some previous sort of how to install alphabets and the different types of alphabets. So you can look back at some of those. We don't want to rehash that again. But I do want to cover that in the past, the alphabets that you see yield signs on in DesignShop, they were created where we didn't have so many of the features that we have today. There was no lock stitches, there was no underlay, a lot of stuff that you couldn't do. So we always encourage you to use the starred alphabets instead of the yield signs. You can use the yield signs fine, just don't push them as far, as extreme as you can with the OFAs. All right, so let me show you first of all where the alphabets are stored, because that's important. So on a default installation, we're going under your hard disk, then program files x86. Chances are you have a 64-bit system. If you don't, you go program files. Then we go to Melco, and then we go to DesignShop. V10 is usually what it's going to be called. Mine's a little bit weird. And then there's an alphabets folder inside of that. So here are all the different alphabets. Let's talk about the different types. So the oldest type of alphabets are ALPs right here. If you can't see the extensions, go to Windows and don't hide file extensions.
Files have known types. Under view right there, yeah.
Oh, is it? Yeah, there's so many different ways you can get to things. So anyway, yeah, you can see the extensions here. So ALP is the oldest type. They are older. That's all that Melco started out with. They used to be serialized. And so in order to edit them, if you look at one and go, yeah, I want to edit this letter A, it's going to automatically prompt you, which I'll show you, to convert it to an OFA from an ALP in order to work on it. So OFAs are the newer type. They are level certified, so you create a design here, it's not going to work for somebody in version 7 DesignShop, stuff like that. All right, so how come alphabets are never as good as digitized letters? Hard question, but just imagine. I mean, we say that you can scale, lettering in designs, logos, 20–30%, depending on what's involved in the logo itself. Obviously, if it's bare bones minimum letters, you can't scale down 20%. So we're asking alphabets here to go from a ½ inch to 2 inches, right? I mean, we're a couple 100%. That's not 20%. So it has limitations. When you try and scale it that far, you kind of got to be careful and do a little bit on the conservative end when you digitize them. There's no height compensations because this huge size range, how would you know how to compensate it? You might have noticed micro block and some of the micros, I did compensate them because those are only going to run at a very small size, a limited size range, so we can, tweak it and get it better there. But you can't ask block 2 to go from a ½ inch to 2 or 2.5 inches and everything be lined up. And
But you can ask it.
You can ask it, it'll just say no. Okay. The other thing you're going to do with alphabets that you never do with digitizing is closest point connection. So you're going to let the software completely resequence all of your elements so that it can, get the letters hooked together through closest point. Sometimes I look at them, I'm like, I didn't digitize that.
I didn't do a travel stitch there.
Yes, because it has totally resequenced everything. So closest point is great. We push it. Small letters are going to benefit if you keep the machine running and connect the stitches between the letters instead of asking the machine to trim every 100 stitches. We've been over that a lot. People like every letter trimmed today, so I don't have an answer for that. But run closest point if you're, under 0.3, I guess. Push the letters a little bit closer. Kind of depends on the font. If you're going to stitch letters larger, I encourage people to always run them as digitized because that is going to follow the path that we took when we made it. And a lot of times I'm going to sequence the letter such that when it's done and it ties off, there are no gaps between any of the intersections. Now, if you run closest point, even though you're trimming every letter of this 1.5 inch letter, it's still going to resequence and change everything, and you might get gaps there that I didn't plan on you getting.
Now, there is a difference with lettering. You can change the sew order, right? You can go left to right, right to left, or center out. That just changes the order of the letters. It does not resequence
the order
of the elements inside the letters.
Yes, right.
The one that does that, like Scott said, is when you change to closest point or bottom connect, that will resequence all the pieces inside those letters. So it is really hard for us as digitizers to predict every which way that can be resequenced and have it look perfect every time. So if you want it to look like Scott thought it should, or I thought it should when it was created, that's when, as digitized, this is what the digitizer thought, this is what he intended, go with that.
Exactly, yeah. The other thing that we're asking these alphabets, these poor alphabet characters to do, is we have massive property changes. I mean, you're talking slant 15 degrees forward. I want this on an arc. I want it to follow a path. I'm going to add shadows. Oh, wait, no, I'm going to bridge the whole bottom of this, this word. Or, you know what, I'm going to use auto borders and put a whole border around it. So we're asking alphabets to do a lot more than normal digitizing can do. So just be aware, of course, your best digitizing is going to be from somebody who really knows how to do letters and digitizes them for that fabric at that size, on and on like that. But let's move on. Okay, so modifying existing alphabets and TrueType fonts. So you can go into the editor, like I was saying earlier, and take the letter A from block and open up the center of it because it closes up at the small size that you sew it or something like that. The problem is the next time that we have an update of DesignShop, it automatically overwrites all the stock alphabets. It won't affect any of your custom alphabets, but if I go into block 2 and modify it, then I update to a newer version of DesignShop or a service pack or whatever, it's going to rewrite that, overwrite that. So
if anything spelled the same.
Yes. So we're best to make a duplicate of it and change the name. So what I do is I will go find, what were we going to do? We were going to do regular old block. So block 2, I have so many.
You're 2 above it.
Oh, was I?
Oh, right. Oh, there.
Yeah, block 2. I was going to go for regular block is what I was thinking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I should go by name. I know how to use Windows.
Elemental block. Wow, you've got a lot of different things on there. So Scott and I have some kind of funny alphabets on our computer because I have a bunch with my initials and test and letters after it because I'm trying different things.
It's an ALP.
And that would do it too. So let's go back and convert it through DesignShop real quick.
Yeah. All right. So here we have tools, and here is the alphabet editor. And you go find the font. In this case, we said block.
They're going to follow after.
There is block. All right, so if I wanted to edit this letter A like I was talking, when I click on it, up comes this dialog. It says you have to convert the ALPs to the OFAs in order to work on them. So I would call this block Scott or something like that, whatever. You can find your own names for them that make sense with you. And now I have 2 copies. I have my block that's just stock and it'll get overwritten when I install new software, but I have block Scott, which is going to show up in my custom section and it won't get overwritten when I install the new software to it. Okay, so for modifying an OFA letter, since I already converted this, we'll just zoom in here. You can do whatever changes you want. Notice that how the letter is placed inside of the box. It's 1 inch tall. That's very important. Is the reference height is based on 1 inch. I like to keep everything at that size rather than digitize at 1/4 of an inch and have it modify it up. I just find it better to have everything at 1 inch. If I had digitized 1/4 inch letters, what I would do is I would pull down this bar here till it measured a 1/4 of an inch, if that's the reference size.
But you're going to have to do that for every character.
You are, and so it's, yeah.
I would, if that was the case, I would take my original artwork and I would scale it up to be 1 inch.
Yeah, maybe the purpose was, oh, I got all this already digitized at 1/4 inch. I'll just paste them and make an alphabet of it.
And I get it, but
no, it's but it can be deceiving then too, because on small letters like micro block, you'll see, wow, they're off the baseline 4 times what you would expect because it's 1 inch. I'm going to run it at 1/4, so everything I do here has to be scaled up 4 times. Make sense? Any questions going on?
A question that I super can't answer. It is, how much is the upgrade from the lowest to Pro Plus? And I'm not going to know the answer to that. I don't think Scott is either. I would contact your sales rep, see what they've got going on for that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I wish I had a cool answer for that, or the Nate and Scott special, but we totally don't.
They have version 10 already?
It doesn't say.
It's hard to say. There's a lot of advantages going from 9 to 10. We did 26, right? New alphabets, wasn't it? For
it was a while ago. I don't remember. Yes, we did a good chunk.
Yeah.
I thought it was
25.
I don't know.
No, we did volumes, I thought. But anyway.
No. 25, not 26.
Yeah.
Not 5 versus 26. No, more than that.
We've been working on a lot of projects, right?
Sorry, I keep waving to everybody because I get like somebody else came on and said hi, so I will wave. So if I keep doing this, that's why.
Okay, so I modify an existing letter. Let's say that this is too high. It was closing up at small size that I run it, so I can move this guy down.
And I like what you're doing. Instead of just moving the top edge down, you're moving the whole thing down. He's also right now moving the travel stitch underneath. So when you're looking at these, think about the elements that you need to grab. Don't just grab the top stitching. Look for any travel stitches that have been digitized underneath.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is why I typically do not do this kind of editing in 3D because I can't see all those other little bits.
No, exactly. All right. So I could modify whatever I needed to do on this letter. Maybe I'm getting a thread break there because it's too close to the start of the column, whatever. Now, there is no file save as for alphabets. The way you save an alphabet is to click on a new character or start a new character. Every time, boom, that I click on something, now it's saved it every single time, which is nice because you don't want to have done 20 characters, forget to save it, something crashes, the lights go out, whatever, and then you got to start over. So the way we save alphabets is by clicking on a new character. If you should exit and it prompts you to save it, click yes, because what that means is you worked on the character that's currently on screen and you didn't click on a new color or a new character to change it. Okay. So that's modifying regular alphabets. You can do that, but what I recommend is that you go in and you first, if it's a stock one, you would right click on it and then you would go, I do copy and then I do paste. And then see it shows here, so I have the two of them, then I will take and rename this one to something that's makes sense to me, whatever I need, Scott or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so now this is the one that I would work on in the alphabet editor.
Don't be like me. Don't relabel everything whatever test, because then you have like 20 versions of test.
I'm there, man.
Just don't.
I have test everything. I have blanks.
Yeah, or yeah, my initials after. Yeah, don't.
Yes. Okay, so let me see where we are. You can also modify TrueType fonts. And so we'll go into here. You remember how our list shows up? We have the regular fonts by category.
You guys probably don't have Nate's alphabet. I was messing around on Scott's computer.
Oh yeah, we create our own categories. We do all sorts of stuff. But see, your custom alphabets, your ones that you create, are going to show up in custom. And then there is also TrueType modified that would show up at that's.
So those are ones. Those are TrueTypes that you have converted. I was like, that is not the right category.
No, definitely jumped. Here we go.
There you go. So we, I don't remember if it was DesignShop Talk or Alphabets, or we had been talking about OpenType fonts. And OpenType are ones that DesignShop can read if it contains TrueType outlines. And unfortunately, OpenType has two versions, one with TrueType and one with PostScript, and we only get to read half of those, so the TrueType ones. But OpenType has a lot of flexibility, and the typographer can decide to add a bunch of ligatures. So if you type, FT, the crossbar can go across both of them, and it will replace it with not two characters, but its own one single glyph. And so we try to do that, and it shows up as character not available, all that kind of stuff. Gets a little funny. If you choose to convert it to a modified TrueType, which is what Scott's looking at doing right now, that alleviates that issue to where you just have a single character per single glyph per character.
Right.
Got that backwards. And so that's one way to deal with that. And then the other kind of nice thing about it is you can go in and edit those characters and they stay edited for you.
Yes, exactly. Right. So if I could modify the shapes and change curves and open things up and do whatever, and then as I save and work on another letter, then it's good forever. So TrueType fonts still are generated by the computer, right?
Yeah, I mean they're essentially vector outlines that have been converted.
And so they weren't really made for embroidery to begin with. They're probably made for print, the TrueType. So just be careful with TrueType. Always use an alphabet digitized by a human when possible. I've gone over the example. Arial is a TrueType font. Arial is also an alphabet in DesignShop. use the alphabet instead of the TrueType to get better results, the best results. Okay, so creating new alphabet, that's what we're going to work on now.
I'm sorry, while we were talking about converting, would you go to Tools? And I just lost it. Convert alphabets.
Ah, yes.
So this tool is a way to just kind of automatically take one alphabet and convert it to another. So this is the easy way to grab it to TrueType, convert it to an MTT, and then you have the ability to go in and edit it. Same thing if you wanted to grab an OFA, rename it, grab a ALP, rename it, and convert it. This is one way where you don't have to go into the file system. You can just grab it here, convert it to, and then hit convert, and you're good to go. Remove ties, I don't think is something you need to worry about anymore. That was
B9.
Yeah, back in the day, older alphabets had tie stitches in them, and we would have people go through and remove the ties if they were going to add them via properties, or they had to look every time. So that was a tool that we had in there. The tool still exists, but I don't think the tie stitches exist anymore.
We took them out for 10.
Yeah, we took them all out. So, but that's what that is in case you were wondering. Okay, sorry.
That's always a hard one, is, to digitize the ties, then you got to plan worst case. And so some alphabets like Diane script and stuff used to have 4 or 5 lock stitches because you might sew it at 4 inches, and it would just slaughter it when you sewed it at 0.35. Confusing question?
Only because my head wasn't. The question makes complete sense. And the question was, can you paste a vector into the alphabet editor so that you can digitize it? Yes, you totally can. It will not stay. So if you go change an alphabet, the vector will go, or change a character, the vector will just poof, disappear. That is not typically how I work. Typically how I work is I will start out with all my artwork, vector, whatever. I will digitize all my pieces, and then I will just go grab the pieces I want, the character, the glyph, the whatever, the A, copy that, and then paste just the stitches into the alphabet editor. That's typically how I will work. And then occasionally I will use vector for, like, if I'm trying to get the edge of a script to line up to something, I'll give myself a vector guideline.
Guideline, yes. Okay, so I'm going to show you the quick process. We're going to do a letter, start to finish, so it should seem a little bit more clear in a minute here. Okay, so here's my advice. The best digitizing practices, I guess you could say, for alphabets. It's really critical that you set time aside for quiet, focused work. This is a lot of repetition going, copy the letter, paste the letter, move it, change the spacing. It's a lot of repetition, and I'll tell you, when you get up to go get a drink of water and come back, you kind of got to reorient yourself. So, man, I do these at home in the quiet where no one's calling or coming in asking questions, and it really makes a difference because we're looking for consistency, and you get to follow a routine and everything comes out looking uniform. But where you make your mistakes is when you stop, take a break, come back a half hour later, and you forgot exactly what you were doing at the time. Everything is based on an inch, so remember that. Now, what we do is take like a capital B, let's say, and that's going to be at an inch, and everything else is scaled, off of that. The capitals are usually about an inch, the lowercase are proportionally smaller. So everything's based on, the caps are based on an inch. It's really important you understand this. When I save an alphabet character, it strips out all of its properties. It strips out the vector. If you have artwork like Nate just mentioned that comes into here, when I save it, it throws that out. It will throw out all your properties, special densities, pull comp, underlay types, all that. You don't want to do any of that in the alphabet editor. In fact, when we digitize, our characters are very, very plain. They have almost no underlay, just a starting walk stitch, and they have no lock stitches and no pull comp, any of that stuff. If you do put it in there, it'll get stripped away. Just like if you're trying to do a half wireframe, half expanded character for whatever reason, when you move on to the next character, the expanded is removed. We do all this, on purpose so that they stay as sort of clean as they can, which was not the case with the older ones, like I said. So, all right. What you want to usually do is start with a walk stitch element. So I can see here that there is a walk stitch, starts here, just walks up to here before it starts the column stitch. Reason for that is the lock stitches will happen here. It gives the machine a little time to shake out and get up to speed before it starts attacking the underlay and the top stitching. You would never want to have a tie-in stitch and then go right into a column with no underlay. All machines just need a chance to sort of shake things out and get everything rolling. I use column 1 for smaller letters and column 2 for larger letters and script. Nate's like column 2 no matter what.
I use column 2 all the time.
Yeah, it's
for 2 reasons. 1, it works fairly well for me, and 2, if I try to switch, I will digitize the wrong direction every time, and then I just get angry.
Column 1 was the only tool, so I got so used to it that I've kind of stuck with it. Your choice though. Column 1, column 2, you can use complex fill, unifill, all sorts of stuff like that. All right, we said only wireframe elements because the expanded will get deleted. Next, you need to kind of decide on a size range that this alphabet is going to be good for. You're not going to get 0.2 to 4 inches out of an alphabet. We make letters differently based on their size, and so you got to stick with a certain range. My life was 1/4 inch letters because everything I did was left chest and hats. So it was really important, and I made my own alphabets in block and also in serifed block for 2/10, 0.25 inch letters. That's the only size that they were run, and so I could compensate the height in the editor and try and get it to where you run it and it's just done. And it worked pretty good, actually. So the size range, I don't know, maybe 0.5 to 1.5 inches.
I wasn't paying enough attention.
It depends on the font. The serifs and all sorts of stuff kind of decide on how big the size range can be for an alphabet, but you can't go crazy.
Well, and what are you planning to do with it?
Right, exactly. What fabrics, all sorts of stuff. The other thing we do is view it at the size, the smallest size that you're going to have in your range. And we generally make sure that the strokes, which are the parts of the letter, are at least 1 millimeter at that size, right?
Yes.
Because
and there are times that let me think about that for a second. So if we are planning on lettering that is going to sew out at 1 inch by default or whatever, but we know that we're going to have it available to take down to 1/2 inch, the artwork that we're looking at 1 inch, yeah, we do the math and make sure that it's 2 millimeters at its thinnest, so that we avoid thread breaks.
Now, if you use pull comp, routinely, you can go a little bit thinner than that in your shape, but because you're using the alphabet instead of we're putting this out to the world and they're going to use it every way possible and break it in the process. Okay, so the size range, make sure that you got enough column width to pull that off, and back up these alphabets. My goodness, this is like it probably takes 8 hours to digitize full alphabet with all the Euro characters. We do kind of a lot more than probably most of you would do.
Well, and we say 8 hours, like it's what we do. It's what we become, kind of little alphabet machines. Like if you're
Yeah,
not
right.
used to it and
Practice
you
them.
haven't digitized as much as we have, it may take you a little longer. So back up that time so you don't have to do it again.
Oh, completely. Or people will install a new computer because one crashed, and then they'll say, "Ah, I don't have these special alphabets." Melco used to sell premium alphabets in the past. You know, where are they? So if you've got them, you can just drop them into the alphabets folder, and boom, you're going. Okay, so let's start the creation process. I will, don't know if I move, I'll just close this down for right now. Okay, so how do we create the artwork? We're not going to get into this in massive detail. We'll be here for 4 hours. Whether you use TrueTypes or you have your own art you create, whatever the case, we set it up for about an inch. So I have a file here. I like to use EPS files. That's what Nate is really good at making. They're nice and clear, vector, really crisp. All right, so I will first open up my artwork, which in this case is an EPS file. This comes up telling you that it's too complex. Go OK. I will usually take and delete the vector part or the raster part of the art because I just want the vectors. Okay, so whatever program, graphics program you use, we put the letters together and the capitals are an inch. Everything else would be proportional down below it. All right, then you want to bring it in and make sure that it actually is an inch when you bring it into DesignShop. Sometimes they're a little bit different from a graphics programming.
Well, and yeah, I mean, in theory, anything at 72 points in a computer is an inch, but that's that's not really how typography works. There's spacing built in above and below, and so it may change, and that's all. That all goes back to when it was done with literally blocks of metal with a chunk, blocks of metal, blocks of wood, whatever, shape of a letter pressed out of it, carved back, whatever, to make it stamp. So that's kind of where that comes from. But if we do that, it gets a little bit funny. Heck, even when we have descenders and they extend below the line, and so you type in the word toy, T-O-Y, and the Y comes down below, and you have your lettering set to 1 inch. But if you look at the design size, it's 1.25 inches. Why is that? Because the tail of the Y comes down. That tends to throw people. So they definitely expect capital letters to be at 1 inch. So that's why this is getting set up this way.
And sometimes with certain fonts, you know, that they will accent certain letters, like a O will be taller, S will be taller than the regular I's and stuff like that, right?
And this is a superbly bad example for that because it's completely completely even. But there are rules in typography that your very angled letters, like your capital A's, V's, W's, anything that comes to a point, the point will actually extend above or below the cap height or the baseline, and I'm saying things that may or may not make sense. Can you just real quick pull up the manual and search for alphabet editor? There you go. You're good.
All right, chop. Okay.
And then scroll down. Whoa, you scrolled. Weird.
Wow. Did I scroll?
I don't know what happened.
There we go. I scrolled one up.
Okay, so scroll down another page.
How do I make the text bigger?
Control and scroll.
Hey, cool. I learned something. All right.
All right.
All right.
So scroll down to that. So this is kind of what I was talking about in DesignShop when we are dealing with the size of the alphabet, and in the alphabet editor we'll look at this again. But the 2 lines that you're really concerned with are the blue lines on there. It's listed as letter height. That's the baseline and the cap height. What you'll notice is there are some lines in some styles of alphabets that will extend above or below. So you may have a swoop that goes way down below or way up above. And those may kind of change your design size when you're typing them, but your letter height will still read 1 inch. But what I want you to pay attention to is where it's kind of falling along that line, or in between those two lines, and that's what we'll look at when we deal with the alphabet editor. So typically capital A's, V's, W's, the A will stick just above the line a little bit on a point. The points of the V's and the W's will go below a little bit. Same thing with really rounded letters. So like an O or a Q will typically extend a little bit above and below. And that's because if everything was completely even as you were looking at it, it would honestly look a little bit shorter because the visual weight. Like you, the human, you would look at it and be like, that's totally wrong. That does not look right. But if you take a ruler and line it up, you'll see the differences. So that's why you'll see some of that and if you are sewing it and you are creating your own alphabet and you do see some of these characters look a little smaller or bigger than they should, that may mean that you need to go in and extend those characters a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, we're going to do some sampling, so you'll be able to tell after that.
And that is outside of all the pull comp stuff we talk about.
Yes. Okay, so however you do it, whatever you use as your artwork, here it is, and I'm going to just take and use my ruler and verify that I did get them about 1 inch. So yeah, I'm close here, maybe 2 points off, something like that, but that's nothing. The other thing you have to do is if you bring it out of your graphics program, and DesignShop works really well with EPS files, you need to convert it to curves, or else it'll generate stitches when you bring it in, which you can convert to vector, but just easier in your program, convert to curves and then save as EPS and bring it in here. Okay, so here are all the letters at 1 inch, and like I say, lowercase, numbers, punctuation, could be in separate files, or it could be one gigantic artwork file that you've digitized. We bring it in all at once because we can get a lot of advantages here by copy and paste and duplicate. You see that the serifs on all these letters are the same, and so I will take the time to make sure the first letter serifs are just like I want them, because I'm going to paste them in every other character that I can. 2 reasons for that. One, it saves time, but I am really about trying to keep all the letters looking consistent, so they have the same stroke width, they have the same serifs. Your eye is going to see the consistency as it goes across from it.
E and F are almost the same letter, just copy and paste. O and Q, same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
sorry, and I keep scooting in and out because I'm trying to find an answer to a question.
Okay, so pretty much you just are going to make one OFM file as your master, and so we would go in, we would start with a walk stitch and give it a little time to shake out, like we said. I like using Alt to constrain. The machine loves to sew horizontally and vertically. Enter. I'm going to grab my column tool and I would digitize this whole letter. Alt constrains me, go a little bit past for overlap, and walk back down. There's so many different styles to digitizing text and all that. I'm just kind of showing you how I do it. Okay, so I'm not going to digitize this whole letter, but I'll just show you part of it. I will change the exit point from there to here so I can take off and go. Okay, on and on. So to save some time, I've already got a version that I digitized the letter A. Same artwork, I just did the letter A. Okay, so save as you digitize, and what you're going to end up would be an entire digitized OFM file. All the letters are digitized based off of 1 inch.
Got a little push and pull built in, don't you?
Oh, yes. Nate says a little push and pull. You bet. You see how we shorten them? I shorten them up a little bit. How much is kind of it's up to you.
Experiential, yeah.
Yeah, experience. Maybe you're going to move this leg down some, whatever like that. But yeah, we get that thread push. So you know how we told you about cutting off the ends of the satin stitch because it's always going to push on the top and the bottom and shrink on the sides. So very important to do that. Okay, so I've got, let's say, my whole entire file digitized here, and now I'm going to make an actual alphabet out of it. Two color alphabets also, by the way, are fine. You just digitize them with the color changes, and as you process them, DesignShop knows to start, or OS knows to start each letter with a color change so that it follows the sequence. Okay, so this whole thing is digitized as an OFM file. It's been saved a bunch of times. Really what I do is file, save as, and then you will have, usually it's going to be called, you know, thick, whatever.
Whatever your artwork was.
Yeah, we put, usually I do master characters.ofm so that everything is, the file names all refer to this font so that when I store it that way I have everything I need. We also keep everything that has existed on creating this alphabet inside the same folder. You could have a host of different files in there that make sense to you. You know, sample files,
test files,
and
whatever.
yeah, all sorts of stuff. And always a good idea to put the OFA file in there when you're done. Okay, so we've got this on the screen. The next thing we do is switch to the alphabet editor. So Tools, Alphabet Editor. Hey, here it is. And we are going to make a new. So creating a new alphabet is done right here. And we'll call it, how about Facebook Live Block? Sound good?
Great.
Oh, how about that? Okay, once I do that, wow. Okay, so it's going to instantly ask me for which key do I, which letter do I want associated right away. Well, I'm going to do usually Shift A, capital A, and hit OK. Now it's sitting here waiting for this letter. So I'm going to go through Window back to my artwork file, the OFM, and you constantly are switching back and forth. Usually I will lock the vectors.
That's smart.
Don't have anything like that. Yeah. Then I'll take and I'll select the entire character.
And don't select the whole alphabet, just the character.
Yeah, that'd be it. Yeah. Then I click on Copy to put it on the clipboard. I will go to Window, back to the editor, and I will go Paste.
And where did it go?
You're like, where is it? And that happens very often. Well, think of it. That letter A is way off of origin, which is the center of the whole thing. So we usually use, you know, fit window, fit selection.
I just center design.
Yeah. So a little bit about this. It's a lot of repetitious keystrokes. Go and copy from the main OFM file, switch windows to the alphabet editor, paste it in, center it, zoom out so you can see it, right? It's like a lot of keys, and we did that for quite a while.
And then we got cool nifty gaming keyboards that we can program keys.
So Logitech, good maker of mice and keyboards. The model we have from them is G105. I think 30 bucks, was it? 35?
I don't know. It's not bad. It is, one of my coworkers refuses to use hers unless she's doing alphabets because it's too clicky. It's got a little bit more noise than some of the ones she's used to.
Don't get one of those mechanical gaming ones that drive you nuts. Anyway, the cool part about these keyboards is they have, on the left side, they have 6 macro keys. And so all you do is go, hey, for the number 1 macro key, you know, I'm going to tell you this. So you go switch windows, you know, by going to window and down several, and paste, you know, and center, and zoom out. We do like 8 or 9 keystrokes per macro. So I have a number 3 macro that switches me, and copies, or I copy it and then move it over to the editor, paste it, center it, size, or zoom out so everything is perfect. That has saved a ton of time by doing that. So if you're going to do this a lot, you might buy yourself a nifty new keyboard. Not necessary, but sure is helpful. Okay, so usually to get your character into the place where we're going to place it for spacing and all that kind of stuff, we'll center the design. So that's up here. I have hotkeys for it. Then I will zoom in the right amount. And what we want to do is take this character and usually always paste it in the upper right quadrant. So you can see here that, I'll move it down one, usually it rides on the baseline, or could be shorter, could be longer if it's an O and stuff like that. It's usually butted up against the left side, right? So this is 0, 0 at origin right here. And then the last thing that I have to do is decide on how the spacing is going to go. So if I zoom in here, this little tool right here is the spacing handle. And so if you think about it, the letter starts here at this corner and then ends, and then it has a little spacing. So the next letter would start right where this spacing handle is.
So you'll often hear me refer to this as origin and next origin.
That's good. Okay, so this is kind of up to you. 2 millimeters is kind of what I use often. And so, how do I know what 2 millimeters is? Well, watch. As I take the mouse and I put it right on the edge of this letter, or wherever the right edge would be, and I look down in the lower left corner, you can see as I move that the X value is 246. This is right over here that I'm looking at, but I can't, right? You can't do both.
I can't point to two things at the same time.
So I think you got it though. See, I'm at, okay, 245. So if I went 20, that would be 265. So I take and I grab this and I'm looking in the left corner and I'm looking for 265, right? That's my 2 millimeters of spacing for that.
I am too lazy to do that math. I will build like a little walk stitch rectangle that is
Vector.
2 millimeters.
It's a vector, yeah.
No, I do walk stitches.
Oh,
because
and
I don't
delete them.
The trick is I have to remember to delete them. Otherwise, when I'm typing, all these little squares start showing
I
up.
got that last week.
Sorry.
No, it was my fault for not deleting it when I
Oh, I
processed.
thought it was one.
No, you run it and all of a sudden you got this big box around the letters. So, okay, so if I had descenders, those are going to hang down, of course, below the line, like a lowercase g or y. And some things, accents for Euro characters and other things are going to extend up above. But generally, place it like here. 0, 0 is right here, and everything is to the right and above it if it's not descenders. Okay, and then I just go, hey, new, and then, whoops.
That was a new alphabet.
Sorry,
Don't do that one.
Messed up. New character down here, and then I would type in, B, and then I won't, but it would be fresh here. Then it would be a brand new character. I would take and go back to here. Then I would select the B. I would copy it. Then I would switch over, paste it.
So you can absolutely avoid all the copy and paste and whatnot if you decide to digitize inside of the alphabet editor. I super would not do that.
I don't think so, no.
There's no way I would do that. I would set up all my stuff ahead of time and then and I would even consider sewing it out
as an OFM before you processed it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's.
But then I'm gonna sew it out again as an alphabet. And one kind of fun thing that Scott and I do when we're testing stuff is we'll go to like Project Gutenberg and go grab a chunk out of the Wizard of Oz and just paste it in, or just Star Wars or whatever, and paste it in there and see what it looks like as real lettering.
Right.
That's kind of fun.
It's instead of just you typing A, B, C, it's actually showing you real.
How does it look?
Real things.
Yeah.
So I think kind of everybody has the process, how we go back and forth. And then when you're finished processing this and you close the editor, you have a new alphabet.
You have a new alphabet that you can use.
Okay, so the other thing is, well, I live in Switzerland or something like that, and I have Euro characters. We put a lot of Euro characters in our alphabets now. But how do I find it? Well, you probably have a European keyboard, so
that makes things a little easier. But if you're doing it and you don't,
but we do the character map. So go down to the search, CHAR. There's the character map. Comes with Windows, and this has all of the Euro. Oh, you wouldn't believe the stuff that's in here.
Well, and that's going to change depending on which font you have selected in the top.
Yes, exactly.
So some of them may not have nearly as many as others.
Arial's a good one. So let's say that I was doing the A with the, is it acute? I think it's not. Is it acute?
I think so.
I thought somebody pronounced it different sometime. This will show you what it is. And also notice down here, the other way to get it into our software is to with the number lock on, hold Alt and 0193, and poof, I'll show you how that shows up. In this case, we would, if this is the character we wanted, we would select it, we would copy it, and then as I go back to the alphabet editor, I could do a new character and I'd Control V to paste it in there and it would show up. Or with the num lock on, hold Alt and it's 0193. Oof, see, shows up either way.
Or is it 0176, I think, is the degree symbol. And I don't, like, I typed it so many times, I just do it.
Yeah. Okay, so, and then you just digitize, you know, and paste in the character with the accents and all. We usually trim between the two. So that's how to enter strange characters that you don't know, like we do registered marks. We do a whole bunch of regular characters inside the font, trademark, stuff like that. So this will help you find some of that. Okay, so that's Euro characters. I know we're running late here, but hopefully you're getting plenty out of this. So then it comes to testing after I've digitized them all. Normally, you know, I would go back, start a new window. You got your text, you would type out all your characters usually at the size that you want to sample it out at.
So I'm sorry.
Go ahead, please.
We've been going back and forth, and the question was, can you assign a glyph to multiple characters, and the way that an open type does?
Oh.
And the answer is no, not really. But okay, why are you doing this? And it's for kind of interesting and special things. So what I do if I want to have that character in there for something like that is I will sub it out with a character on the character map that I'm never going to use.
Yes, right.
And then I can just pull that up and stick it in there. So
I've also seen that for, like, say that you had a script R, lowercase, and one starts up this way on the tail, the other does that. You want two alternate, or two choices of R. Yeah, exactly.
That's how I would do that.
And then just remember when you type them in. Okay, so we're going to sample this out. After you create the alphabet, use the smallest hoop possible at that size. Maybe you're going to do a couple of sew outs instead of one gigantic one because the large hoop could distort things from reality. You set your desired properties, exactly how you're going to run it with the underlay, the lock stitch type, the pull comp, whatever you want, and run it.
Well, your best guess. It's an alphabet, right? You don't know what's going to happen to it.
Okay, so then I sew it out, look at the sew out, and then I'm going to make some adjustments because just like all digitizing, you know, it never turns out exactly like it looks on the screen or like maybe you thought it was. And you always have to do some modifications. Cut a letter off a little bit more, open a little bit up for the S, the R's, the P's, whatever it takes. what I caution you on is don't get carried away at this point. Don't like massively edit based on one sew out, because it might not be a full representative case of how it's going to act. So sew it a couple times, sew it on a few different fabrics, whatever, just to make sure that what changes you make really are needed.
And you might not have had your coffee that morning, and you might have sewn with the presser foot.
Exactly. Yes.
So, sorry, I want to show one more thing. Would you go into
one more thing if I could?
Oh yeah, no,
just a
sorry.
sec. So when I'm doing these edits on the characters, it's really important that you don't use properties to do your edits. Like, oh man, I love the way everything looks, but you know the W is a little bit thinner than the rest of the characters. I'll just add full comp to it in the alphabet editor.
I would not have even thought of that.
Don't do it. It strips out all that. So don't, density, nothing is held except for the shape of the wireframe of the character.
That's a really good point.
Think about that.
Totally would
really
not have thought of that.
It's so easy to do, right?
Oh yeah, it's like whoop, done.
Yeah. So and what I do is, so we create. You could do it on paper. Have each character A, B, C, D, E, all the way. Every character in there. And when you digitize them, you can make a checkbox, whatever, just to make sure you cover all the letters. And then usually you go, you know what? I really wish that all the serifs were a little bit this way or that way. I'm going to go change them. You can use that same list in a different color pen or something like that to check off, yeah, I edited all the serifs on this many letters, so that when you get interrupted and the dog has to go out or whatever, that you know kind of where you left off right there. So yeah, no properties for editing. Actually move the wireframe shapes. Okay, go ahead with your.
So along the same lines I was talking about before with special shapes or whatever, would you bring up, what is it, athletic, what is it, swish, swoosh, something, the one with yeah. You know what I'm looking for.
Yes. Swoosh, yeah?
Okay. Yeah.
This one with the characters?
Yeah, so it's just off screen so we can't see it. Do athletic flair, because that one I think we can see everything for. There. So on the preview for this one, you can see that it has these long tails. I don't even know what to call that. The flare piece underneath. Those are digitized shapes that just happen to be assigned to the character that I'm displaying to the right of it. So if it's a left bracket, you're going to get, whoa.
Trying to come across, then I can show
yeah.
You. Sorry.
There you go.
There
you go.
All right.
So the very first one, yeah, if you do the left bracket, it's going to be a tail that can contain so you can do this for text ornaments and assign them to characters you're not going to use very often, or at all, because if you assign it to that, it's always going to be that tail or whatever. But you can do that to shapes to include in there.
Yeah, I mean, just doesn't have to be letters, really.
Right.
Alphabets, yeah, can be like you see the specialty or picture ones.
Yeah, there's pictographs and pictographs, and petroglyphs is the other thing, which we don't have because that's stone. But you get the idea.
Okay. So the next problem you'll run into is, let's say, let me just kind of show you how I do this. It's weird with different resolutions on both monitors going from one to the other.
In the window.
Yeah, so here you'd have A, B, C, on and on and on like that. Let's say this is the alphabet that I'm testing, and so it shows, I sew it out, and then I make my corrections in the alphabet editor. But I come back here, and it still looks the same. You have to force the letters to regenerate, or it leaves them just, like it was up on the screen. The way that we do that is you have your A through Z twice, all this kind of stuff here. We go copy, Control X I do for cut, and then paste. And now you see that apply lights right up. It's active. And when I do it, boom, it would regenerate the changes, because else that can be frustrating. It's like, how do I do it? I mean, one way, well, you have to force regeneration. So Control X to cut, and then Control V, and then you'll apply it and you'll get your new changes upon that. All right, so just a few little things here at the end. Don't forget you can convert alphabet text when you're using it to wireframe, and that gives you full control as if you digitized every single letter. It's not bound by alphabet properties. You can do whatever you want with it much easier.
Except change the spelling.
Yes, that's a problem. Oh yeah, there's one. Yeah, no, I still have it in my notes. Okay. Don't forget that all your custom alphabets you create are found inside then the custom section. We have them in different areas, categories, and so here's your custom, which I've got like 3,000. I have 100 customs in here, though.
Been busy.
Or 120, something like that. Yeah, for a long time. Or you can search. Remember how we could type here, whatever the name, and it would show up. So that's available also. Alphabet previews. So you know how you get beautiful previews of the each alphabet. When you digitize your own, it's not going to happen that way. And the reason is Nate actually creates these files by running letters. Different alphabets are wider, thinner, all sorts of stuff. They change in how they're displayed. DesignShop isn't going to be able to do that generically. So we will just give you a generic preview. Anything you want to say about that? We do PNG files.
So yeah, they're just PNG files that I created, and there was another question that kind of ties along with this is, see how there's a suggested min and max. Can we add that to custom alphabets? And my unfortunate question back to you is, how well do you edit XML?
XML, yeah.
So there's an XML doc in that alphabets folder that points to both the preview file, so if you wanted to create your own, you could, and the category and the min and max. Just keep in mind, if you forget a comma or what don't close the brackets appropriately, your alphabets aren't going to work so well. So if you choose to try to edit that XML file, please just make a copy of it somewhere.
Yes, right.
Before you do that.
To go back. The last thing that might happen is, so I created, this Facebook Live block or whatever. And I have several design shops in my production facility. So I have it on here, but then I run it with an order, like a logo and then this new alphabet text underneath it. And then I take that OFM file to another design shop, and when they run it and look at the alphabet, this is going to show up as hollow because it doesn't have the alphabet in the alphabets folder. So it's going to show it as blank. It will display the text. You can make some property changes.
I was trying to remember.
Do this too much, but you can't change the text from ABC to DEF because it doesn't find the alphabet to do it, and so it won't let you do that. But just understand that that's why stuff shows up blank like that. Hopefully we helped you out, and you'll try creating or modifying an alphabet or two in your DesignShop Pro Plus, and you can really get a ton of benefits through making your own special alphabets. Just really ones you use bread and butter all day long are terrific. Any more questions, or should we shut her down?
I think we have them. The only other question was the full screen crosshair. How do you get it? Where is it? It's under Tools, Options, Preferences, and it's a digitizing cursor. The trick is it is level dependent. So it is Pro and Pro Plus only.
Yeah, but man, I'm telling you, once you start using the crosshair cursor, you couldn't pry it out of my hands now. No way. It just helps you. It helps. It helps. It's like using a drafting machine where you roll the ruler up, right, and you got all the letters, the A's, and all that kind of stuff. One thing I didn't show you that I think Nate you touched on was it's not in that one. use your vector lines all the time. Usually, like when I'll load this up, before I start digitizing it, I will go into the vector line and establish my reference points. So I know that, you know, here is one, whatever is unique to it. All my serifs are exactly this high, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That will really help you with references.
And I started to get really worried because I'm like, no, like you can use a lock stitch for that if you don't have vector. If you have the alphabet editor, you also have vector because that's the level it comes with.
Yeah,
so
Pro Plus.
Yeah.
So. All right, everybody. Hopefully you got some great knowledge out of today's session, and we will look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks, guys.
All right, take care.